Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of AB in the Films. Guys, it's Oscar night, and that means I'm going to be reviewing 2012. Not this. No, I'm going to be talking about films from 2012. Now, when I did this last year for 2011, a lot of people told me the next day that I got a lot of those movies wrong. Because, you know, the worst of 2011 and the best of 2011, and some films I had on the worst list should have been on the best list, and some of the films I had on the best list should have been on the worst list, and some films I just left out. Well, here's the thing. Number one, I don't have time to see every movie that comes out. I have a life, okay? And number two, I don't really have enough money to see every film that comes out. I really don't. And number three, this is all opinionated. It doesn't mean anything. But I'm telling you this because, well, I think everybody does this. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people do this on the internet. They talk about their favorite films and what they like and what they don't like. So I'm going to do it too. So instead of calling this the best/worst of 2012, I think I'm going to call this movies I didn't like and movies I liked. So yeah, I think that fits the title a little bit better. And because you want to hear the negative stuff first, obviously, I'm going to talk about the movies I didn't like that were released in the year 2012. So yeah, here we go. A Thousand Words. I am a huge Eddie Murphy fan, okay? I just saw Beverly Hills Cop again earlier today. Like, what the hell? Like, why does he pick lame movies? I don't get it. Eddie Murphy, like, you got 48 Hours. You got Beverly Hills Cop. You got The Nutty Professor. Nutty Professor 2. I like Nutty Professor 2, actually. I don't know how many people like that or don't like it, but I actually like that. Again, I really hate to admit this, but it's a guilty pleasure of mine. Norbit. I liked Norbit, okay? I know a lot of you guys are probably saying, are you crazy? How could you like that? I'm a sucker. I like that movie. Nothing in this movie was interesting. You know, there was one good moment in this where I did laugh. The moment where Eddie Murphy is ordering a coffee at Starbucks with Jack McBrayer, I think. That was funny when he's trying to order it without saying anything and he's he's playing charades and stuff. That was good. The premise of this movie is so stupid. Okay, here's what happens. A tree grows and leaves represent words. Like, one leaf equals one word. And every time he says a word, a leaf falls. And as soon as all the leaves are gone, he can't talk. That's the premise. And even if the premise is stupid, you gotta get someone who can at least make it funny or at least carry it on to fill an hour and a half. Like, kind of like Liar Liar. That premise is really stupid. But you know what? Jim Carrey had a way of, you know, making it funny and keep the funny going for at least an hour and a half, at least for me. Eddie Murphy does not in this movie, and he's such a great comic talent, and he's just not funny in this. And for me, this movie just didn't do anything for me. And obviously, you know what I don't get? This movie was originally filmed back in 2008. It didn't come out until last year in 2012. I don't know what happened. Like, maybe after they were finished filming it, the studio kind of, like, rejected them. But then a couple of years later, they probably put money into this and they finally got it released. I don't know. But I don't know why post-production took 4 years. I don't get that. But either way, the movie, it just didn't do anything for me. So 1,000 Words, yeah, didn't like that movie. Brave. Okay, now, I mentioned in the Brave review that I sort of did like it. Well, I watched it again. And here's the thing. Before you say anything to me about this, because a lot of people had a split decision on this, I walked into this movie literally not knowing what it was going to be about. Because I think in the trailers, like, they never really explained what this movie is. So I was really curious. The one thing I was hoping for was that it would be better than Cars 2. I was really hoping for that. Because Cars 2, in my opinion, no, that's not just me, that's almost everybody, is probably the worst Pixar movie ever. The worst. But with Brave, okay, here's what happened with Brave. It opens up, and for a while, I'm actually getting into that. You know, I'm actually really getting into the world and everything. I'm getting interested in this character, Merida. I'm getting interested in this. What happens where it goes downhill, and you could call it plagiarism, you can call it not plagiarism, you can call it whatever, when the mother turns into a bear. Like, I looked at that, I'm like, really? You're ripping off Brother Bear, a movie that wasn't that good in the first place? Really? Because Pixar, you know, because here's the thing with Pixar, they have really interesting story ideas. They can come up with a lot of interesting stories. And I grant you this, not every story they write is unique and original. I mean, monsters coming out of the closet, we've seen that. Toys coming to life, we've seen that. Superheroes, we've seen it. But you know what they do? They take those ideas and they add something new to the table. And that's what makes it unique. There are a few things in Brave, but not enough to make it stand out on its own as a good Pixar flick, at least for me. Because what they do is they rip off Brother Bear, and that alone was really distracting for me because all I could think about the whole second half of the movie was Brother Bear. And, you know, I will say this about Brave, okay? The ending of the movie between Merida and her mother, you know, when she's this close to becoming a bear, you know, as a whole, the whole scene between her and the mother is very well done. I love the drama. Like, it almost brought tears to my eyes. It really did. But aside from that, Merida, in my opinion, isn't that good of an interesting character. And, you know, I know what you're thinking. Oh, how could you say that? How could you say that? Well, you know, she doesn't really do anything. I mean, like, we see her in the trailers with a bow and arrow. She uses it, like, what, 2 times in the movie? That's it? And, you know, and the premise, it starts out really well. I really liked where it was going. I liked how it starts off with, like, she goes in the middle of these, I forget what it's called, but it's like this little blue light and stuff. Well, what the hell is that? Where does it come from? We see it in the trailer, but it's never explained. We're thinking, oh, the movie's going to talk about it. What do they do? They have the mother turn into a bear, and somehow this is going to get them to relate to one another because you know, they think on opposite sides throughout the first half of the movie, and somehow the mother turning into a bear, this is going to get them together, and predictable. And that was the thing with Pixar. Their movies were very unpredictable, except for Cars. Cars was pretty much predictable, that story. But the movies they made are very unpredictable. This was so predictable. I knew where it was going to go. From the moment the mother turned into a bear, I knew where it was going to go. And, you know, the funny thing is this. It doesn't even look like a Pixar movie. It looks like a DreamWorks movie. The animation looks like a DreamWorks movie. Half the jokes are something DreamWorks would have done. I did get a few laughs out of Merida's brothers, her 3 little twin brothers. They were funny, but, you know, even the father he gets a laugh once in a while. But I just felt like this movie fell flat a little bit when it comes to creativity. I mean, it started off really well, but then it goes really downhill. Like, when Merida goes to see the witch, okay, I thought she was going to be the villain, and she looked pretty interesting. You know, like, we don't see her half the time until she comes out, and she has this, like, we don't know much about her. What do they do after the mother turns into a bear? They go to find her, and she left, and we never see her for the rest of the movie. So, what was the point? You know, what was the point of that? And, you know, like, here's the thing. With Brave, I'm going to wrap this up because I've gone on too long about Brave, but the thing with Brave is, I sort of like it, but I didn't like it as much as some of the movies I'm going to talk about later that I liked in 2012. It was better than Cars 2. I'll give it that. I'll give it that. It's a lot better than Cars 2. But for me, like, here's the thing. I don't like Cars 2, obviously. I like Cars 1, the first one, but it's my least favorite Pixar movie. Like, I can think of 5 other Pixar films I would rather watch again than Brave. Like if I were to look at all the Pixar films, I wouldn't say, oh, Brave, let's watch that. I wouldn't be like that. I'd rather pick, like, Ratatouille or WALL-E or Toy Story or something like that. Like, Brave is with the first Cars. It's like down there. But I don't hate it. But it's like, it's alright, but it wasn't what I was hoping for. So, a couple good things in it. Not really a good story. Kind of fell flat for me. Next one. Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2. Okay, I did a 40-minute review of this, so you obviously know everything I feel about Twilight, especially this movie. I'm not going to say this is one of the worst films of 2012, although it might be on some people's lists, I don't know. But for me, I laughed my ass off to this movie. I loved every minute of this movie. The acting was horrendous. The dialogue was horrendous. The effects are horrendous. The editing effects in this movie are terrible. The plot is ridiculous. Arrow is the only... I found out his name. Arrow. Arrow is the only interesting character in this movie. I don't give a shit about the love triangle, those three characters. Don't care. They're bland and boring anyway. Arrow is the most interesting character. You know what I want them to do? I would rather... I heard that Stephenie Meyer had written a book, had rewritten the first Twilight novel, but it's from Edward's point of view, but then it leaked on the internet and she's not going to write it now. If they're ever going to do a spin-off of Twilight, do it about Arrow and the Volturi. Everybody in the world would pay to see that, because he is the most over-the-top, fascinating character in this movie. He makes me laugh my ass off. You know, Michael Sheen as the head of the Volturi. Yeah, do a spin-off of those guys and forget the dumbass love triangle shit. Just make it about them. That alone is worth the price of admission. But yeah, Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2. Didn't like that movie. I don't know what else to say about it. I did a 40-minute review. I can't really talk about it that much. So, yeah, didn't like it. Sorry, people who are fans of Twilight, but it wasn't for me. Next one. The Odd Life of Timothy Green. There are some movies out there, when you watch them, the trailer makes the movie look like an Oscar-nominated movie. And if you want a perfect example of that, watch The Odd Life of Timothy Green trailer. Watch this trailer. This movie looks like an Oscar-nominated movie. If it doesn't do anything for you, you know what? I got a better example. Watch the trailer for Robin Williams' movie Patch Adams. The trailer for that movie makes it look like an Oscar-nominated movie. The movie itself is shit, obviously, Patch Adams. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Odd Life of Timothy Green. Okay, I saw the trailer for this. In fact, you know, I don't remember when this movie came out, because what drew my attention to it was I took an editing class last fall, in the fall semester, and we had movie posters around us, and one of them was Odd Life of Timothy Green. And I saw this trailer, and it kind of caught my attention. I'm like, well, what's that about? You know, it's got the Disney logo on it. There might be something interesting. So I looked it up, and it came on demand, and I ordered it, and I watched it. And the first 40 minutes of the movie is Joel Edgerton and Jennifer Gardner moping around, wanting a kid. They write down everything they want in their kid because they can't have a child, and they bury it in the backyard, and they have a kid. They have a child that grows out of the backyard. Okay, interesting premise. I like that premise. It's a fantasy. I get it. It's Disney. It's a fantasy. Okay, fine. It's a kids movie, but I think the first 40 minutes of the movie was this. I was so bored by that. I was falling asleep. It was like 7 o'clock at night when I ordered this movie. I fell asleep the first 40 minutes. So I woke up the next morning, I went down, I finished watching it. I gotta tell you, this has got to be one of, like, this is not just a movie I didn't like. In my opinion, this is one of the worst films of 2012. And this is why. A lot of things. Number one, the character of Timothy Green, who you would think would be the most interesting character in the movie. I mean, he grows out of the garden. You would think he's interesting. I mean, his name is in the title. Bland. Boring character. Like, I don't remember a thing about this character at all. He's so boring. The only thing I remember about him is that he has leaves around his ankles. And how could you forget that? Because they explain that a lot. I mean, that's the poster. Jennifer Gardner's sister in this movie, like, I just want to strangle her. She's such a bitch. And I hate to use that language. I'm really sorry. I try not to use language on the show, but I gotta tell you, I could not stand her. I just couldn't stand that character.